It's live.
Okay, hey everybody, thanks for coming tonight to hashtag How Will You Lead, an EdTechTeam community event brought to and put on and shared by our community members just like you. Hopefully if you're in the YouTube chat, you see this lovely chat bar. So go ahead. I'm going to ask everybody in the community right now watching to go ahead and introduce yourselves as you come into the YouTube channel. This will be archived so you can watch it later or share it with leaders or teachers at your school to spread some inspiration. But our chat tonight is all about you and engaging you in conversation as well as these awesome panelists we have. So in the chat, go ahead and share your name, your role, and then how do you lead? So I'll leave that up for a moment. And great, we have some folks coming into the room. Come on in. Looks like we have Donna. Welcome, share with us. Hey, Kat, we've got our panelists are in the chat as well. So if you want to ask questions, please feel free. We're all looking at those and happy to address those tonight for you. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us. Awesome. Please feel free to share your role and maybe how do you lead? What is leadership to you in your current role right now? And this is also a great chance to connect. We'll share with you these great panelists' Twitter accounts. So if you want to share your Twitter handle and get connected after today to keep the conversation going, please throw that in as well. Awesome. Just a few more hellos as you come in. Hey, Paul. Paul volunteers for every training event. That's awesome. Abida joining us from Bangladesh. Great to see you on here today for you, tomorrow. Mercedes, welcome from middle school, leading as a librarian. Really wonderful. Thanks, guys. We'll keep this going in the back channel for our time together. Welcome, Jenny from Raleigh. Very, very cool. So keep those introductions coming, but I am now going to hand it off over to our community members tonight and to tell us a little bit about themselves, their role, how they lead, and maybe what inspired them to have our community roundtable tonight. So first I'll ask Gail Moore, at Gail K. Moore, to share a bit about her role and how she leads. So hey, Gail, thanks for coming tonight. And I think you might need to unmute. Thank you so much.
There we go, sorry.
Polite and muting.
Thank you so much. Great, I'm so glad to be here. This is such a great topic that organically happened for these leaders on the panel. And I think I'm an instructional technology facilitator, and I work with grades 3 through 12, and I've taught elementary 3 through 5. And now that I'm in a leadership role myself the past couple years, I think one of the most important things that I've found is to never get too far from the classroom. The more that I stay near students and teachers, the more I continue to keep that passion of why I went into education in the first place, of making a difference and in the lives of students, and helping teachers and supporting them is probably one of the best ways to reach students. So and then I think one of my other last statements really and passions is really just building that kind of that capacity and conditions for teachers and people working in education to continue to cultivate and become the best that they can be. So I think that's kind of sums it up.
Thanks, Gail. And I think if we look at the chat, I love it because I know everyone on this panel tonight is wearing a ton of different hats, and building that capacity is so important. And I'm just looking here at Brian and Donna. Look at everything that Donna does. Donna's on the PD committee, the tech committee, building the high school reading program for struggling readers. So we're all leading in so many different ways, whether you're just starting out or doing it even impromptu or informally with a group that you've just started. So really, really cool stuff. Thanks, Gail. All right, let's see who else we've got on tap. We got Katherine Goyette joining us at Kat_Goyette. Add her to your network. Really great resource. Hey, Kat, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure, thank you, Wendy. So my name's Katherine Goyette, and currently, yeah, I'm at the county level. So I work with, we serve over 200 school districts, and so it's a big job. And I've learned that as a leader, it's most important to facilitate collaboration, because there is no way that I can be as many places as I want to be. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about this topic. I saw some things go through some email groups and people interested in the leadership topic, and so I jumped in and wanted to contribute and hear what others have to say, because it truly is through our networks and through what we do together that we can work on that. I was a leader at a single school site before I was at the county level, and even there I found that, just as Gail said, you know, you've got to be in classrooms as much as possible, but that's difficult to do. And so I'm really passionate about trying to help leaders figure out how to do that and how to build their network, because you can't know it all, but you can know people that know other people that do know what you don't know.
That is a t-shirt, Katherine. If you don't have that on a t-shirt in the next 2 days, someone on the chat. I love it. You don't know what you don't know, but you know enough people to know. I like it. I love it. Thanks, Katherine. We did have, I wanted to make sure we snuck in Rushton tonight, our mystery leader who's come in. Rushton, I'm dropped in your book here, Making Your School Something Special, and we invited Rushton tonight to share a little bit about some of those leadership strategies for that. So hey, Rushton, you're in a hotel room. Want to introduce yourself to our community tonight and what your role is and how you lead currently?
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be part of it. I hope you can hear me okay and everything. And so I have been a high school teacher and a principal, and now I run a little nonprofit and do lots of little work with teachers and leaders at schools around the world. And in terms of leadership strategies, I'm really all about stories of success. You know, how do you help teachers foster ever more interesting academic opportunities for kids in the classroom? How do those experiences become the stories that become the good fodder for PD and PR, you know, for your school? And so yeah, so I've written a couple of books. One's called Making Your School Something Special, which is about those very ideas, and a second called Making Your Teaching Something Special, which is about how to ramp up your game, you know, in the classroom. And that's kind of built around 5 areas, around rapport with students, assessments and assignments, delivery, collegiality and professionalism, and logistics. So at any rate, I'm happy to kind of spend a little more time with that, to whatever extent it fits with what you got going. But I did have this thing last week that was quite the experience. This thing called the 5-Day Teacher Challenge. And if any of you knew of it or heard of it or had teachers go through it, that's wonderful. We had about 2,000 teachers from 40 countries take part. And the idea was to help teachers understand that you can get better through very simple ideas that only take a couple of minutes to kind of work with, and put out, you know, a pair of challenges each day. Pick one of these and try it around those 5 areas that I mentioned before. And yeah, a lot of good stories around that challenge. And the hashtag 5DTC is one that you can take a look at it and see what people were putting out there. But with that, I'll quit rambling at you, and thank you again for letting me be part of your evening.
Thanks so much, Rushton. We've dropped your site in here to share, but really exciting things. And when we have our community questions here in a minute, we'll be sure to tie back into, I like the idea of PR plus PD. I know Jonathan was sharing a bit about how we do that when we're trying to get folks on board with some of the ideas we might have as leaders. So love it, and thanks for being with us tonight for sure. Cool, and I did bring up, Katherine, I wanted to make sure we threw over your 4 themes paramount to leadership, but a lot of the panelists tonight have like Rushton with his 5-day teacher challenge are writers too, as part of sharing their ideas. So I wanted to make sure I'll drop in Katherine's link, and we'll bring up some of those ideas later on in the chat. But really exciting stuff, and thanks for being all of us writers with our community tonight. All right, let's keep going down the line to our panelists and introduce Laurie Guyon, who is a frequent webinar attendee, writer, and leader with us. And it's great to see some other folks who are bloggers and community members like Brian in the chat with us tonight. We're so thrilled to have you. But Laurie, tell us a little bit about what you're up to and how you lead. And I think I may have muted you earlier, so you may have to hard unmute yourself.
Do that.
There you are. Perfect. Hard unmuted.
Okay. I did it. So yeah, I had to put in this picture of me and Trevor McKenzie from the summer during the master class because I realized I hadn't taken a recent picture of me in a really long time, and this is the most recent one. So, and you know, he's one of my EDU heroes, so I figured that would be a great photo to throw up there. As far as how I lead, I'm the integration specialist for my district. We're a small school in upstate New York. And so I lead all of the training from K-12 for every teacher and administrator in our district. You know, they come to me with anything from how to do something on Google and to how do I implement something different in the class. Every day is different. Every day is exciting. Every day is either pushing into classrooms or having teachers come to me. So it's an exciting place to be. So I'm pretty excited about being able to share some of those thoughts with all of you tonight.
Awesome, Laurie. We're so excited to have you and to share some of those experiences with the community. So great. Let's keep cruising. I think that's a wonderful picture, and I'm glad it's really great. Let's keep cruising, and we've got Mr. Jonathan Frye with us tonight at TechFrye. Add him to your networks. Jonathan, tell us a little bit about one. You have to tell us about your makeshift studio that you're in tonight, and then also how you lead, because I know you have a fun show and tell item to show us how you're currently leading. So introduce yourself. Let's hear about you.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Frye, and I'm currently an instructional technology resource teacher in Central Virginia. And how do I lead? Basically, I took the last year building trust amongst the staff. And I think building relationships really is the key to the next step of leading. I have more of a coaching and collaborative role in my school. So I try to lead by example and lead by modeling. I also try to make things practical for people to show them that I'm willing to do this, and I think you should too, because I think it's worth your time. And I think that's really important to teachers, to be sincere and honest. I think we have so much on teachers' plates right now, and that as a leader, we have to understand that if we give them something else to do, it needs to be practical and worth their time, and it'll improve them as a person. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm right at the beginning of my leadership program, so I'm more of I'm going to probably ask more questions than give advice right now.
I love it, and that's part of being a leader, I think. So we're really happy to have your experience and your thoughts. I've pulled up here Jonathan's blog, and I'll drop that in the chat too. But Jonathan's written some great ideas around how you will lead, along with some of about your leadership style. So I'll drop that in the chat, and I also have Laurie's blog too up here. Laurie's top 3 traits of every leader. So we'll talk about some of these thoughts around how you will lead and some of our community members' blog posts after we go through a few more questions. So thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Katherine. Thanks, Laurie, and thanks, Rushton, for coming tonight. Let's keep cruising through some of our thoughts for the community. If you've just come in, please make sure to introduce yourself in the chat. So just checking in, we have Riaz from International School of Tanganyika, and so thanks for joining us. Please feel free, as we ask some questions, to share your thoughts and ideas in there as well as if you have questions for our panelists and their experience too. So thanks for joining in there in the chat. All right, let's go to our first question for our community roundtable tonight, which is from Laurie. And Laurie, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? And the way we'll work the roundtable is if in, here we go, if in the chat you want to join in on the roundtable too. So please share right now in the chat how you foster a culture of lifelong learning at your school, in your role. And then our roundtable, feel free to unmute and organically let's have a chat for a few minutes about this topic. So Laurie, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So yeah, I threw out this question, how do you foster a culture of lifelong learning? Because this is where my passion lies. I feel like it's so important to always be learning, always be finding out information, whether it's through Twitter or through the EdTechTeam or through a book. I feel like you're always, there's always something new to experience, something new to figure out. But I do find in my district sometimes, and even when I go out to conferences, that teachers always feel like they just, well, I shouldn't say always, there are teachers that feel like they know enough to do their job every day. But does that make them good enough to really do what they need to do to be the best they can be for their students? So my question is, how do you guys foster a culture of lifelong learning? For me, it's going through and offering professional development where I foster inquiry. I ask them the questions. I always start each session with, what have you tried? How's it worked? You know, what did you learn from the experience, and where do you want to move next? And it really does allow for some really great conversations. So that way, when they leave my sessions, they know that what they did had value, and they can see where they want to go next.
I think also I wanted to go back to something that Jonathan said earlier when he was talking about making sure that we build with relationships first, because I believe that if you get to know your teachers and your staff, then you can tap into their interests, because not everybody necessarily wants to be a lifelong learner about coding, but perhaps they're really excited about teaching literature, or history, or whatever it happens to be, or specific teaching strategies. So I think that part of just building that culture of lifelong learning is meeting those teachers where their passions lie, and that really starts with building those relationships and knowing your people.
I think teachers are teachers because they also were very good at learning. So I don't know if you could disagree with this, but I think that teachers constantly are learning. They're constantly changing. You know, the only thing in education that's constant is change. So they're constantly learning. It's just whether or not we can foster a culture of intrinsic learning versus extrinsic learning. But I know that there are certain things that administration needs to push forth and push down on teachers. And I think that's where we as leaders get most of the pushback from. And I guess my biggest challenge right now is how do I take that and try to get everybody on board? And we were talking about getting on board, even though you might not share that philosophy. So what I try to do is I try to take what we need to do and try to have some sort of practical application and show them how this can help their classroom. But definitely anybody else can certainly come up and offer any kind of advice on that too as well.
I love that, Jonathan. I mean, what we need to do versus what we want to do, or what we really care about doing, and how do you balance that as a leader with the realities of things you have to do? Does anyone want to share about that, what you need to do versus what we love to do, or what we're passionate about?
I think to add what Kat and Jonathan were saying, ways to build that kind of that relationship. Relationship is so important, right? When you still do have those logistics to do. I've seen some examples where, you bring the teachers in as, kind of what Kat was saying with on their strengths and interests. If you know a teacher and they're excited to share something that they are actually kind of an expert at, then you kind of have a twofold. You're building a culture of learning in your school, but then you're also highlighting teachers' strengths and also building that culture of trust and within the school, kind of off Rushton was saying as well.
I totally agree. Celebrating, your teacher's strengths is so super important. And sometimes that's the gateway to get them to try something maybe that they weren't willing to try before, is to say, hey, I know you're really good at this. How about we try this? And it's just another step or a different direction, but it still works within their wheelhouse of where they're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Any examples of highlighting teacher strengths? What are those small celebrations you might be able to do to foster that? Any examples recently that any of you might have tried?
Well, I mean, to get our teachers to try something new, we made a competition, but it was more of a challenge. So we all wanted everybody to learn Bitmoji. Everybody get a Bitmoji. And so we didn't care how good it was. We just wanted them to try it because it was a little bit different. And so everybody sent a Bitmoji and got an automatic name on the wheel, the random wheel. And we had about 75% of the staff do that, and 5% of the staff to even read emails. So it was really kind of nice. And then of course at the end, it was really quite a trinket. It was a $5 subway card that we went out and got. But everything was done through online. Nobody had to sit through a PD or anything, and everybody brought them together. I collated all the Bitmojis, and we spun the wheel. Somebody won, and and now teachers have attached Bitmojis into their Google Doc. They've put them on their emails. It's made a little bit more flavor. The kids are wondering who's what. So it kind of went a little bit. It was just a fun thing that I think they took and have infused it, and really it was a $5 subway card. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
I think Jonathan, you hit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Laurie.
Oh, I was going to say I had a training today where I was trying to encourage some of our teachers to do the hour of code without me. And I know that sounds like something simple, but it's definitely, I've always pushed into their classrooms and helped them out and kind of got them started. But because I'm being pulled in so many directions, I really can't physically be in every classroom anymore like I did maybe last year. So, they've seen it in action. They have the tools. They definitely can do it. It's just taking that next step. And I had a teacher that was there that said, you know what, if I can do it, I know all of you can. And it was such a little win for me, or a big win really, for her to say, you know what, we all have the foundation. We can all do this. Laurie will be there to hold our hand because I'll still be there. I just won't be the one directing the instruction. So, it was such a great experience. And that's where I feel like that culture of learning is coming. It's something you have to continuously foster.
I think we don't spend enough time talking about the pedagogical importance of fun and cool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And when we think about how we interact, especially collegially, how we get together, we do different things. How does a staff meeting go? Is it just about reading a bunch of announcements that could have been sent out via email? Or are we actually exploring to do something together? Every way we use time sends a message about how we think about our team. And so when I think about like the activities that happen, there is often a culture in schools of a reluctance to talk about successes, right? So if it's something obvious like the football team won, that's fine. But if it's something in your class, then to talk about a success in your class is somehow bragging, and that's not cool. And that's ridiculous. That's crazy counterproductive for trying to reach every kid, because essentially, we can't sit around and be careful about fragile egos on the staff if you're doing something that's amazing, I need to hear about it because it might allow me to help some kid that I haven't reached yet go, oh, that's what we're talking about. I like that. You know, I mean, like, we need those moments. And so we have to be ready to celebrate each other because we need to try things out. And I think that when we're really building off of each other, you know, having the kind of fun that you talked about, I think we're much more in that space.
I love it, Rushton. Thanks for sharing that in the funagogy. I think that might help with what Donna says here in chat, you know, about feeling alone sometimes. And so I feel like letting yourselves celebrate those or brag or share and have that space to share cool stuff, I think will help against maybe that feeling of you're an island or that you're alone. Does anyone else have an example for Donna of maybe how you combat that feeling of loneliness with your teaching or your leading?
I think it's important to find at least a couple people that are not necessarily even within your district that you can bounce ideas off of and that you can trust and that will give you honest feedback. So I think part of it is seeking that out, and you do have to seek that out because it's not necessarily natural. Sometimes, unfortunately, there's a lot of competition in educational leadership amongst districts or across counties and within counties. And so I think sometimes expanding your PLN and looking outside for people that are like-minded can be really helpful because it's tricky. You know, it's sometimes you just need to ask someone an honest question. This is what I am thinking of. This is how I'm thinking of approaching this issue with this teacher. What do you think? You know, and just having someone else listen sometimes can be really powerful.
I love that. And you have up behind you the hashtag CV Tech Talk, but Katherine does a great job of rallying people regionally around that. And anything you can share about that being a space for maybe those sharing or those questions or not feeling alone, like Donna mentioned?
Yeah, you know, it's something that really I started just because I felt like I couldn't be everywhere. And I knew that we needed to learn from each other. But it became a place where, yeah, people, it kind of blew up and became a much larger network than I expected, which was awesome. But people will come and, you know, you really feel like you get to know these people, people that I haven't met in real life, join the chat, you know, nearly every week, and reach out, look up, you know, start joining some Twitter chats. That's how I really started building my PLN. I'm very passionate about the need for networks, especially for administrators. So my Google Innovator project really is kind of geared toward that as well. But just joining some hashtags and some chats is really powerful because you know that there are other like-minded people out there. Sometimes you don't see that in your own area, in your own region.
For sure. And I'm looking at the chat and I know we're still on Laurie's question, but there's so many great stuff coming off of that. So thanks for bringing that up, Laurie, with the culture of lifelong learning. We're learning right now, and Riaz is sharing, you know, embracing Facebook, G+, effective way to reach internal and external audiences. And I know Riaz mentioned earlier in the chat as well, parent and connection as well through social media and having that immediate connection for sure. Cool.
I think that a couple people, I don't know who exactly it said, I think it was Jenny Conrad said that we all need mentors as leaders. And I definitely, one of the reasons I wanted to become a leader or finally felt that I was a leader is because you look at those people and they either make you say, I want to be like this person, or they make you say, I don't want to be like this person. And definitely you gravitate towards those people and you want to be more like those people. So definitely, even if they're unofficial mentors, definitely start collecting your PLN. I have pretty much everybody that I seem to interact with. I want to learn something from them. Paul is here too. I learned something from him. He coached Jenny Conrad. She's a Google trainer. All of you guys, definitely always trying to learn from people. Definitely.
I love it. Laurie, you put in the chat too about strategies for finding that mentor. And it's like you just said, find them and build it, and then more will want in. So really great way to start that mentoring relationship for sure.
And I think there's the opportunity to experience something together, right? Like some of the very best moments I've had in ed tech were just sitting down with another couple of teachers and looking at something we'd never seen before and talking about what would be a crazy way to use that, right? You know, how did you make that happen? Oh, and then suddenly we're just exploring together. And I think that culture is important. And so, I was thinking a minute ago about, what Katherine was saying, and, about building those networks. And people want time, to just listen to other people's stories. I think they want to be in that space where they're finding, what Jonathan talked about. I mean, like somebody that inspires them, hopefully, on how to do it right, as opposed to how not to do it. But I think that's where we want to be. We want to be inspired. And when we get together and we explore together and we share stories together, we're optimizing the chances that that's happening.
Awesome, Rushton. Yeah, Brian's shared PLN is my biggest mentor, and Donis's Twitter and YouTube. So absolutely finding those channels, and that's awesome. Brian and his wife too, team Cawthor. So your spouse may end up being your mentor professionally as well as personally. So maybe not, and that's okay. So all right, guys. So thanks, Laurie, for bringing us into the land of culture and kicking us off on the right note for our roundtable tonight. Let's go to Katherine's question for the community roundtable, which how you unite your team behind a shared vision. So maybe you're building that culture of lifelong learning where teachers want to learn and want to connect with each other, but how do you get teachers to connect behind a shared vision? So Katherine, do you want to share maybe your example of doing that, and then we can go around and hear other community members' thoughts around it?
Sure. Yeah, the reason I wanted to bring that question up is because I had experience joining a team that was, as Rushton had said, was felt divided and sometimes did not want to share for risk of looking like they were showing off. They were, even things that were going on in their classroom, they didn't want to look like the favorite department or grade level or whatever. And so really we had to break down those walls of competition, even within a staff, and say, what is this about? Why are we all here? And so it was an interesting process, and I learned a lot, but I really feel like a lot of it had to do with, as Jonathan said, the relationship building and the trust. But you have to build that not just with each team member, but you have to unite the team together. And so that's a challenge, but I think that it really boils down to having something that we all are united around. And for me, I tried always to link that to students. We're here for kids. We are here for student learning. And so that's my approach. But I'd love to hear other stories, challenges, and successes that you all have had as well.
I think, Kat, you kind of really hit on it. You're saying this is how we do our work here. This is how our culture is. And it's not a choice. It's not you can if you're comfortable with it. No, this is why we're here. This is how we work. I think is really important.
I agree. It's all about remembering what's your learning outcomes, why are you doing something? And that builds a very strong foundation for whatever your vision is.
Remember we talked earlier about uniting your team behind something that you may not be behind. Mm-hmm. And I have a real, I mean, that's my challenge. That is definitely my challenge. And I was wondering if anybody had, because we talked about intrinsic motivation earlier. I don't know if it was actually on air or not, but it's very easy for me to unite my team behind a shared vision if we all intrinsically believe it's good for us. Like, we come to conclusion that this is good, we should go with it. But when you have a situation where you've been told, this is your vision, how do you unite your team behind that vision? And we talked about this, the idea of fixing your face. I said that because I'm really horrible at that. Everybody, and one of the people on the chat, Jenny Conrad, she taught me that, and I use it as much as I can, because I have to call myself out, because definitely in Hangouts and other situations in leadership, if I don't agree with something, I need to really very quickly, try to get on board, even if I'm not. So if anybody can maybe answer that question, how do you unite your team behind a vision that you may not personally be 100% behind?
I'd say that one of the places you can do it is via the identifying shared pain points. I mentioned that about staff meetings that are tedious, but also it can be about the shared experience of having what I call the aspirin kid. The aspirin kid is the kid who walks in the room and looks at you, and suddenly your head begins to throb, right? That kid. But we've all got that kid, and to be in a space where we're regularly talking about, how do I reach that kid, right? Because there's not much better in our profession than having the moment where a kid, who's been like a total pain in the posterior, kind of buys in and says, I like being here. I'm excited about this. And we have to roll with a lot of punches to get there, but because it's a shared experience, it might be the kind of thing that takes the focus away from the people who would prefer just to complain, because they will do so if they feel there isn't something else filling the void.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, kind of go off what Russian was just saying. We had a great experience as a leadership team participating in this kind of strategy from Steve Zweiback, and it was called the Ladder of Inference, and really finding behind every emotion, or I don't want to do that, or fear, it's kind of common sense, but going through it, there's a very base belief that teacher or person, educator, believes in when they are saying that. So to kind of go to that and really find where they're coming from, and kind of that little bit what Russian was saying, that pain point, and having them come in and share have a piece of the ownership of that.
Totally. I'm looking at Jenny in the chat too, of sharing that it can be tough to talk about that too. So it could be why sometimes schools or teams might avoid that because the most important conversations are the toughest to have. So thanks for sharing that, Jenny. Does anyone on the panel have ideas or strategies for? I think Laurie, talking to that culture is really important, to feel comfortable hosting these tough conversations, or talking about aspirin kids, or making those problems. How do you make it safe to maybe say what you might really be feeling about problems at your site without alienating others, or fear of retribution or anything like that? Anyone want to talk a bit about fear and what that looks like?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. When I do my professional development, I found that there were teachers that would seek me out afterwards and say that they felt that things, that maybe they were uncomfortable with some of the things that we were doing, because they're just for that level of technology or whatever it happens to be. So I started using a back channel chat, and I taught them all how to use one. We use Recap, but you can use anyone that you're comfortable with at your school. And what that has really done is allowed them to ask me questions. And it could be something as simple as, hey, I know you said why we're using this, but I'm not sure that I get it. Let's say something as simple as, hey, this is really great. I want more training on it so that I can tag it to do more in the next session. That has really offered a voice for some of the teachers that maybe were a little nervous in the classroom or in the workshop setting, to really kind of tell me how they're feeling. They also have started to schedule one-on-ones, some of our teachers, with me, where they step away from the training that we're doing whole group, and they're saying, let's just sit together and kind of gather the information, because maybe that's a more comfortable setting for them. So I feel like it's a matter of giving your teachers a voice, no different than you want to give your students a voice, so that they can express how they're feeling, and they can tell you, I'm good with what I've got, or maybe I need a little bit more. And that has worked really well for us at our district.
I find that that's as well with me, the idea of I do much better getting my team behind a shared vision if they have a relationship with me and they trust me. And so when it comes to those times where they're challenging what we're doing, I find that having that trust and having that relationship allows them to vent to me, number one, but also get over that venting a little bit more quickly and get on board because they trust me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever notice that your teachers act a lot like the students that they teach?
Sometimes, yeah.
Second grade teachers act like second graders.
I have it. I don't know if I'm trying to think if I have an aspirin teacher.
I do not. They're all
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good right now. But
well, recognizing too that that sometimes we're out to avoid conflict. You know, like the idea is that if we're not having kind of debates and heated discussions, then somehow things are right. And in fact, that just means that we're not dealing with things that we need to deal with often. I think that if what we do lends the message that we value each other's opinions, then even if we disagree, that's fine. Like there's a school I work with a lot where what impresses me most about that school is that one person can look to another person at that school and say, I think we should do this. And the other person be like, I don't, but talk to me. And they'll listen. And they can agree to disagree. And it's not some big drama if there's disagreement, suddenly, goes, totally back in the day, Dallas, on us or anything like that. Just people disagree and that happens. But by avoiding disagreement, we often avoid tackling the issues that we need to tackle. And comes back again to, kind of a shared focus. Do we want to reach the next kid or do we not, right? Are we willing to have discussions about, what it can be and what we feel like we're when you say no homework and you say that's terrible, can we talk that through? So we have to be in that space where we're willing to talk about disagreements.
And I think it all boils down to asking a lot of questions. I found that if I just tell, this is what we're going to do. Oh, I don't agree. Well, this is what we need to do, and this is the reason. That's not going to work. But a lot of times there's underlying issues that I've never thought of that are also important. And so when there is, I just think that in those conversations, just asking a lot of questions and finding out what's really behind this. Why is this teacher disagreeing? Why is this administrator asking me to do something that I don't believe aligns to my vision, whatever it happens to be? It's amazing how much you can learn by asking the right kind of questions. And then I found that teachers or administrators that were very opposed to my initial ideas, after speaking with them and finding out the reasons why, then we were able to come to an understanding and to move forward, sometimes in an even better way than I had originally planned. And so I think, like I said, asking lots of questions, I found is extremely effective.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I don't know if any of you read Jenny Magara's Courageous Adventures, but she has a really cool protocol called the Gripe Jam in there that helps in a fun way get those out, because Jenny mentions here in chat, Jenny Conrad mentions that weird balance that you don't want to become a sounding board and not towards positive action or solutions. So that balance is so key. And I found that protocol or other protocols that are out there. It looks like Jenny has put a great resource. So if anyone in the chat or our community panelists tonight have books or recommendations or protocols like that help give some structure around things of this nature, that'd be super helpful. Throw that in. Awesome. Great question, Katherine, and really great fodder with everybody tonight. Really great strategies and ideas coming out. Let's keep cruising. We've got John's asked a question here. How will or does your educational technology background influence your leadership? So I think looking at the chat, it looks like a lot of folks have technology roles and are working towards empowering teachers with technology. Just looking at Riaz or Donna working on different things with reading in the chat. John, did you want to share with us a little bit more about this question, and then we'll have other folks in the roundtable weigh in with their backgrounds and how that might influence? Take the floor.
I definitely did not see myself as a leader until about 2.5 years ago when I came to Virginia because of the job I took as an instructional technology resource teacher. It helped me definitely get out of the classroom and see the school culture from the other side, which is basically a mentor to teachers. And I found that I really enjoyed it. But I really enjoyed the interaction with them, but I also missed the students themselves. And then I went to a Google Summit and I found very inspirational people, and they were all leaders. And I just never thought that you could have that great combination of being a technology leader and an inspirational leader and a visionary. And I wanted to be that. And so that really influenced my wanting to be a leader, and it also influenced my style of leadership. My style of leadership is collaborative, democratic. I want to be an instructional leader. I want to inspire people by showing them that I know what I'm doing. And I guess I didn't think of that before when I wasn't using technology as much as I am now. And I wanted to hear if anybody else had that kind of pathway that led them to this point, or how their educational technology background influences what they do. Because I might have to say my speaking ability in front of a staff has grown tenfold. My ability to maneuver a faculty meeting and keep people on task is definitely influenced by my ability to provide professional development and the educational technology background that I have. So I'd love to hear what anybody else has to say about that as well.
I think, John, it's been really humbling, I think, with the having the educational technology background, kind of looking back to Rushton's chat about, that component, we're all in it together. We all, none of us know everything, and we're learning from each other, and we're okay with that culture of trying something and it's not working out, and problem solving. Probably that component, and being around a lot of people who are smarter than me and working with them, again, it's humbling, but then it also reminds me when I'm working with teachers who may not feel confident, how to honor where they're at. So that was probably the biggest takeaway: honor where they're at in their journey of educational technology. Even they don't have to be textperts, so to speak, but really allowing them to thrive where they're at has been probably very, very helpful.
I think it comes down to opportunity too, John. Because you decided to dive into the technology and try it out, and you weren't afraid to fail. It certainly showed that you have some of the leadership abilities that others are going to look to you for. I just think that comes with, I think it was Holly Clark who always says, just push the button, and you were not afraid to push the button. So I think that's important.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for sharing that. Let's keep cruising. Thanks, John, for bringing that up and sharing some insight. And thanks, Gail and Laurie as well. All right, Laurie, we got another question from you. I love this one. This is fun. I'm getting some joy right now, but now it's time for a joy jam. After we have our gripe jam, there comes joy. So Laurie's asked, when bogged down with the rigors of leadership, how do you find and share joy? So that's really awesome. Laurie, do you want to share a joy jam with us? And then maybe I think this really goes to, kind of an addition to the initial question about culture and obviously teacher celebrations, but this one sounds a bit different in terms of feeling that the weight of leading others and how to not let that be exhausting and rigorous, as you say. I'd love to hear a little bit about your joy.
My joy. I love the idea of joy jam. That might be my new favorite hashtag ever. I'm a happy person in general. People that know me know that there's always a smile on my face. It's in my Twitter handle, smile's my word. And joy is just something that I get every day. I just feel joy with what I'm able to do. I love my job. I love the people I work with. I love being able to share my passions with teachers and with students every day. And it's for me, it's sometimes when you're bogged down with all the things like John was saying, or I think one of the people in the chat had said, you feel alone sometimes. It's those are the rigors that you kind of get stuck into. Those are the bumps in the road, if you want to look at it that way. But it's remembering every day that there are wins in every part of every day, and you can celebrate your successes equally with your failures, because there's joy in that. You know that you're learning, you know that you're growing, you know that you're doing your job every day. And so that's kind of where I feel with the joy. I mean, when a teacher walks in and they're like, I don't know how to do this, I go, yay, awesome, let's figure it out together. And same thing if they come in and say, hey, I did this really great thing, it worked out really well, they're gonna get the same reaction from me. Yay, that's awesome, I'm so excited that you shared that with me. And I think that's super important. I was on a different hangout with a principal from a school, and she was saying that some days she spends time, the whole day dealing with behaviors. And she said sometimes you get bogged down with that, but then she'll walk out at bus duty time and she'll see all the other students out there that she didn't see that day, that were doing the right things and learning and were excited to be at school. And she remembers that, that there's good in every kid and that there's good in every day. And that's where you find and you celebrate your joy.
I would agree that when I was at a school site, I found joy when I was at a single school site. And even now, when I'm going out and working with teachers in classrooms, I find joy working with the kids. And so, yeah, I would agree that getting bogged down with those administrative duties, those tasks, can start to feel a little, can take away your joy, can suck the joy out of you. But you got to remember why you're here. And so for me, it was for students, and it was to make a difference for kids. And I love to see students learning and the light bulb turning on, and I like to see them working and struggling with things. And so that's what I would do, even if it was only 2 minutes. I could walk into a classroom for 2 minutes. I could walk out on the playground and see some kids just kind of say hi, just watching them play together for 5 minutes. That was what would bring me joy.
Yeah.
I find that that hearing stories, watching people tell stories that really move me, kind of recenters me and gets me past things that might be bothering me at the moment. And so link in the chat there to the inspirational stories section of the resources page at nextvista.org. And feel free to kind of go there whenever you're like, I need a little more faith in humanity, right, man? That parent comes by and explains how everything's your fault and my taxes pay your salary and beautiful thoughts like that. It can be good to watch a video where somebody's like, that's what we're here for. That's cool. So feel free to toss that link around.
I love it. Or, I think curating those, I think like Riaz just put in here, curate your Steve Martin quotes and your clips that make you laugh. And if you share those with your staff and your colleagues, that's sure to spread some of that Laurie joy for sure. It's infectious, as I think a lot of people have put already in the chat, that good leadership is contagious in that kind of way by modeling. So really great. I am going to put in the chat before we wrap up tonight. I told the community panelists we might try this, so we'll see. If you want, just because you've all been so awesome in the chat, I put in, if anyone's brave and wants to come say hi to our community roundtable tonight, I put the link. It's just bit.ly/howwillyoulead. If you want to come on and say hi, if you're Team Cothers on the couch, or driving like Gail, or in a hotel room like Russian. This is #real life, #real lead. We are all on the way to something else, or doing something, or emailing back our teachers right now. So please feel free, come on in if you want. Thanks, Rushton, for coming with us. We are going to give away a copy of Making Your School Something Special by Rushton, and also give away a copy of Jenny's book because we mentioned it, so you can try a gripe jam. So I'll just give away, and we'll just shoot you an email. But I'm gonna scroll through randomly.
Hey, while you're doing your scrolling, if anybody out there, uses the books as a part of discussion with your team, and you say, hey, let's video conference and talk to the author a bit, happy to do that. I mean, like, no charge. Let's just share ideas. So I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. And my random scroll through, well, first I picked Laurie, but Laurie, you can't win. But I found Brian through my scrolls, and I found Jenny through my scrolls. So we'll follow up and give you a copy of just 2 leadership books. Kat or John, if you guys have, or Gail have books that have inspired you, throw those resources in the chat. I think we all learn from finding out what those podcasts, what those PLNs, what those books are. There's so many different ways to get your resources and get your inspiration. Next Vista, for videos, etc. So awesome. Well, no one took us up on our offer, but that's okay. We'll have another roundtable soon. I had a really good time tonight with you guys. I do have, we have Katherine's final, was that our last? I think that was our last question, Katherine. So we'll close out with this. On YouTube, you can watch this later on the archive. I'll send out the chat because so many great resources, books, etc. were shared on there. And if any of you want to blog or share, just like we shared earlier, Jonathan's How Will You Lead, What Makes a Leader Today, Top 3 Traits from Laurie, 4 Themes Paramount to Leadership, written by Katherine. So the blog is a really great place to share your voice and strategies. So please read these blogs written by these awesome community members. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have stories to share or connections to make, or if you want to do this again and have a roundtable and just a frank discussion about things that are going on in your classrooms, in your schools. So I'll leave with our final question for Katherine is just fostering innovation, right? So we talked about lifelong learning, but all of us as part of that is maybe trying something new or innovating and helping with hesitant teachers. So any final thoughts for Katherine? Do you want to share maybe an example, and then the roundtable, any final thoughts you might have around that?
Sure. Well, I think that's important to have that culture where teachers are familiar, are comfortable innovating, and so they have to feel comfortable, building those relationships and that trust, so they are comfortable failing forward, so to speak, as my friend Corey Orlando said. And when you do that, I think working with hesitant teachers is something that I now, dare I say, I enjoy, because I like to see those teachers that initially were so resistant. Once they get it, once you connect what you're doing, what you're asking them to do to something that they're passionate about, it makes a really big difference. So for me, what's been helpful is connecting to context and kind of on-site coaching in classrooms, doing things like that, as well as making sure that there's admin support. I mean, this is a roundtable for leaders, and to be honest, if as leaders, as administrators, we've got to support our coaches, and we need to say, teacher A, this is what we believe is best for students, and I'm scheduled you to work with one of our coaches. I think that our coaches need a lot of support from administrators if they're really going to make do what's best for kids. And I also think that working with hesitant teachers is an equity issue. And so for me, one of the reasons I wanted to go into education is I saw technology being used in some classrooms and not others. And if my kid was in the classroom where it wasn't being used, how is that fair? And so I think that it's our leaders' job to find a way to foster that innovation and work with those hesitant teachers, because it's really more about kids than it is about adults. We are all here for students. So any thoughts on that?
I always find that with innovation and hesitant teachers, it's about starting small. Give them one thing, let them master it, encourage them along the way, celebrate every little step. and see where it goes.
I would agree. You know, it's really we're not much different than students at all, right? Students like to be appreciated. We do too. We like you know, for instance, I just did a simple shout out the other day, and a teacher came up to me and said, I haven't gotten, this is the first time anyone did a shout out for me. And so it was kind of like it made me sad but made me happy, because you know, we were highlighting something that her growth, again, starting with the teachers, but realizing that, kind of what Kat was saying, we have to keep it focused on what's best for kids. You know, yes, help teachers, help them along and start where they're at and honor that. But at the same time, how do you balance that with knowing that it isn't about not hurting teachers' feelings, it's about kids. So yeah.
Thanks, Gail.
Yep.
All right, guys, with that, I think we're over the hour. Really great conversation, really great ideas and resources. I'm going to let these awesome folks go and be on with their evening. Some of you on the chat in Bangladesh and Tanzania are starting in your day, so we'll let you go back to your day. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. We had a really great time with you. We'll see you in the community.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.